Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm doing this recording on April 11th. We're going to go over some of the supplements that I have and how to improve your health, including your brain function. And we're going to go over some of the news where we're going to explain a little bit about what's going on with the right wing of the U.S. politics and why it's so biased against the Iranian war. So thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. Please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also follow me on Apple Podcast and Podomatic, TikTok, Substack, Buy Me a Coffee, and Patreon. You can also donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. Please help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. Please share the links and ask your social media to follow me. You can also follow me on X and GETTR. All the links are in the description of this video and all my videos. In addition, you can follow my live streams on my website, and you can also follow my archived audio podcasts on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. So what I want to do is I want to start with the unhinged Alex Jones. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a feed that I saw on X. All right. This is Alex Jones talking about Trump going after him. All right. But here, the thing is that Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, they were all America First pacifists. Don't go into a war ever. Well, where would they be during World War II? They seem a whole lot like Chamberlain. All right? So perhaps maybe Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, they're all wrong. Maybe, just maybe. All right, let's listen to the unhinged Alex Jones.
For Trump getting back on track. Only way to do is to go after him viciously. You've already shed all over me. And if you try to rub it in, I just at that point, I don't care anymore. So if you think I've been coming after you, if you think that I'm trying to get clicks by attacking you so the Democrats that don't buy anything from me and don't like me want to put me in jail, if you think I've been on your ass, say one more thing.
He is trying to get eyeballs to his channel. It's not so much the Democrats doing it to watch his work. And some of them are because, you know, he's just crazy and everyone wants to watch a crazy person. But the thing is that his base, that is America First pacifists, will buy into his rhetoric and he's going to monetize that somehow, either through clicks, advertisements, or even selling his supplements. All right? Now, the thing is, Alex Jones is younger than Dr. Paul Cottrell. Younger. Dr. Paul Cottrell looks so much better than Alex Jones. Alex Jones looks like he's 65 years old. So, is his supplements working? For him? Doesn't look like it. Oh, he lifts weights. Guess what? His BMI is too high. He doesn't look healthy. He looks like he has a problem with his cardiovascular health. He definitely has a problem with his weight. And at times it looks like he has encephalopathy, mad cow disease. So who do you really want to trust? You want to trust Alex Jones saying that don't go into Iran because this is for the Israelis only? I mean, come on, don't be so stupid. You forget the coal? The bombing of the coal? Would you forget the bombing of Beirut? You forget the Iran hostage crisis? Did you forget, Alex? Well, I guess if you have mad cow disease, you would forget.
One more thing out of your mouth. And Laura Loomer, send him this, okay? One more thing. When I've gone through hell.
And it's so irrational. He's saying that Trump is actually listens to his show, but then he's asking Laura Loomer to send it to him. Meanwhile, Laura Loomer, it sounds like, was trying to get rid of Tulsi Gabbard, which I'm not a happy fan of. I'm not a fan of Tulsi Gabbard, but Roger Stone intervened and prevented or convinced Trump not to fire Tulsi. So the whole right wing of the Republican Party, they're nuts. Just as nuts as the ultra left wing. Alex Jones is just as fucking crazy as AOC or Mamdani. They're just on different sides of the spectrum. Let's continue. But if Trump is listening to him, why is he asking Laura Loomer to send a special message? First of all, why is Trump even listening to Laura Loomer? And have you looked at Laura Loomer? I mean, there's a lot of plastic surgery going on there. Why?
In your ass because you were the lesser of two evils. Then I'm going to show you how to cow eat the cabbage.
Oh,
Do one more thing.
That part was funny. How the cow ate the cabbage. I like those phrases. All right, that's about the only thing I like about Alex Jones. But okay, he's going to tell you how it is. Let Dr. Paul Cottrell tell you how it was. Back in 2020, Alex Jones was telling his audience that the pathogen didn't exist, which it did. 100% positive about that. He lied. He lied. You know why he lied? Because he was afraid that Trump would not be reelected. I know a lot about behind the scenes stories about the crisis of 2020 and how the media played it out, the mainstream media and the alt media. This guy lied to you, and people died because of it.
Missing my
See?
dead. You shit all over me.
See? He thinks that he is the one that elevated Trump to stardom. You know the reality, Alex? You know the reality? Trump was blessed without you. He didn't need you. And so what happens now, for the last, 25 years, his show, Alex's show, has been nothing but gonzo journalism. This is gonzo journalism. You're not reporting the news, you are the news. Alex Jones is gonzo. Gonzo journalism. It's amazing. It's amazing. And what is even more amazing is how wealthy he became from being such a dipshit. This is the reason why the curse is coming. You want to hear how the cow ate the cabbage? Alex, there's a curse coming, and it's going to start on 9/11/2026. And no one's going to be able to hide from it. Not you, not Trump, not me, not the audience, nobody. And you're going to start seeing rages on both sides of the spectrum. People that are middle ground will be able to manage the crisis. All right? But everyone's going to be affected. But the reality is that on the extremes, the right extreme and the left extreme, there's going to be annihilation. That's how the cow ate the cabbage, Alex.
And rub it in. I'm not looking for a fight, but if you want one, you came to the right place.
Yeah. He's a tough guy.
So
yeah,
I'm a rattlesnake.
Alex Jones is a tough guy. Alex Jones is a tough guy with the BMI of 25. Alex Jones is a tough guy with high blood pressure. Alex Jones is a tough guy telling you how to slow down your aging process, yet he looks like he's 65 years old. Alex Jones is a tough guy. The tough guy. Alex Jones, the tough guy from Texas. And how important his family was in the United States. Dude, Alex, there are people, including myself, that have a pedigree that starts with the founding of this country. Alex, shut the fuck up.
Snakes, water moccasins come after you and bite you. Cobras come after you. I'm like, rattlesnakes trying to get away. I'm like, hey, leave me alone. Hey, please don't step on me. God, that really hurts. Please stop. Your daddy's over here. Let me step on your mommy. Let me step on your kids. And I'm just like, all right. I'm like Darth Vader looking at Emperor Palpatine, looking like Skywalker. I'm like, all right. I'm going to politically throw you down the reactor shaft in 2 seconds.
Really?
And just, hey, does Alex Jones bluff? No, I don't.
Alex Jones is gonzo journalism. Alex Jones is a more entertaining version of Howard Stern. Howard Stern is a little bit more, uncouth and, misogynist. But Alex Jones, Howard Stern is, uncouth and misogynist. Alex Jones is just, it's bluster. It's bluster. And the reason why he has been able to stay relevant within certain generations is because he brings on people of that younger generation. Paul Joseph Watson, younger generation. And so Alex was able to accrete Gen Y and millennials because of Paul Joseph Watson. Alex Jones is Gen X. All right. But as Gen X is moving away from him, he has to accrete younger people. And so Paul Joseph Watson's getting too old. Get rid of him. Now, who does Alex align with now? Nick Fuentes. Millennials. That's the game plan of Alex Jones, to stay relevant. Now, let's think about this for a second. So millennials who don't have experience, aren't as educated, aren't as wise because they haven't lived enough, are going to try to tell you that going into Iran is a bad thing. They weren't born when the Beirut bombing happened. They weren't born when the Iran hostage crisis took place. They weren't born when the Cole was bombed. Some of them weren't even alive during the early days of the Middle Eastern War after 9/11. They definitely can't remember the Gulf War. Wake up. People that are young, that don't have experience, their opinions need to be discounted because they don't fully understand what is happening. And we need to make sure that the Iranians cannot have a nuclear weapon. In addition, I am extremely worried about biological warfare because the barriers of entry are very low and the ability to assemble and design is much faster because of AI. That was not the case when the SARS platform was being developed in 2001. The whole SARS platform took more than 20 years to create. Fact. But Alex Jones doesn't know better. You know why? Because he's not educated.
I'm intimidated by you, Trump, the president of the United States? Think I'm intimidated by your hit teams, all the rest of it? Whatever, man. You got God to deal with.
No. Alex is playing to his base. And his new base is that Nick Fuentes crowd. That's what he's doing. To try to be more relevant because the Gen Xers are moving away from his stupidity. The zenith of his commentary, which was useful at the time, was when 9/11 happened. To start questioning what was going on. And it's complicated. There's a Middle Eastern component, and then there's an insider component to it. But after that, he's been nothing but bluster. And if you think I'm wrong, just step back and just like watch what he's doing. Every time that he needs to accrete some views, every time he needs to accrete and become relevant, he aligns with the youth, the right-wing youth, Nick Fuentes. So, same thing's happening with Tucker. Tucker, look at Tucker. Bow tie Tucker. Hey, bow ties are cool, especially if you know how to tie them. A lot of guys don't know how to tie a bow tie. I do. I know how to tie a bow tie. But the thing is that bow tie Tucker getting on CNN as a blue blood conservative. Fast forward to 2026, and now he's Duck Dynasty. What the hell happened there? Because Tucker's fake.
I want to focus on the midterms, the Democrats. I want to promote what's good you're doing. And I want to be left alone.
He wants to be left alone? What about how he built up a gigantic following saying shit that doesn't even pass the smell test? I'm telling you, he's bullshit. He's bullshit. Alex Jones is bullshit.
Today, you'll be tuned into my show with Trump viciously attacking me yesterday with a bunch of baseless garbage.
Garbage.
That I would just be spending all day attacking him and just creating all the controversial statements I could to just stay in the news. I don't care about getting in the news over some stupid quibble. Again, I have opened up my Google news alerts when your name's mentioned, and there's been 36,000 articles in one day about me. Remember all that?
Gonzo journalism.
30,000 publications. So when it get
Gonzo journalism, it's always about him. It's always about him. It's like Alex Jones is like bigger than life. Hey, this guy's a fucking dipshit.
It'll say, 25,000, just one AP article will be that. It's like every day, 10,000, 20,000, 18,000. Some days, 36,000. Every nightly news show. Remember, I'm the devil. I'm hurting families of dead kids. All that garbage. There was 300 plus million off of charities saying I was victimizing the parents. I did none of it. No one pissed on their graves. No one came to their houses. No one did anything. It was just all made up. But they would say, he's the Sandy Hook guy peeing on graves. Trump runs him. It was to get Trump. So he comes out, as Mark Levin's already done. That's why I think Mark Levin wrote it. It's word for what Mark's said in the last few months. This guy was terrorized the families of dead kids in Sandy Hook. He deserves to be off the air. He's a bankrupt deadbeat.
I don't think that he should have been off the air because of the freedom of speech. We have a constitutional republic that's strong foundation off the Enlightenment. So no, I don't think that he should have been taken off the air, but he should have been held accountable for his promotion of Sandy Hook and what happened. The thing is that Alex Jones made a lot of money doing what he said. He made a lot of money doing it. Because there is this crowd out there that is so uneducated, so, conspiratorial. But when something really happens in your life, you can't react. People failed in 2020. Failed. Absolutely miserably failed. They didn't rise up and tell their government to stop doing this crap. No. They hid. They capitulated. Or they used keyboard warrior tactics. Infowars don't work. You can't win a war with info. You win a war through kinetic means. And it's always been like that. Now, information intelligence can actually help the kinetic war. But you can't win only through info. Alex, don't be stupid.
And then I was reading him say that last week, even a few days ago. I read this thing. It's Mark Levin, who's the main writer for Sean Hannity, and he writes a bunch of stuff for Trump. He's basically a speechwriter. He's on a terrorism task force for Trump. It's not about me defending myself. It's like this was the Paul Weiss law firm that sued Trump that ran all this. This is the Democrat Party trying to get me off air and trying to demonize me to hurt Trump. And Trump picks up their weapon system, their propaganda, and uses it against me. It's not the issue that he even attacked me. That's a side issue. It's that he...
The issue is that you are promoting America First pacifism. America First pacifism, InfoWar, doesn't work. 47 years of dealing with the Iranians the wrong way. And we've had presidents, including Trump 1.0, that weren't willing to do the right thing and stop kicking the can down the road. We need to take a lesson from Sharon when he was on the battlefield with Arafat back in, I think, 68. Maybe it's 72. But whatever the battle was, Sharon stated he could have killed Arafat, but he let him go to live another day. If Sharon killed Arafat, we would not have the fucking problems that we have today. So, what do we take a lesson from that? Maybe we can take a similar lesson right out of the Old Testament. When God says to do something, you should do it, not be fearful. Because if you don't do it, generations will be cursed. But Alex Jones knows better because he's a good Christian. Yeah, right. Yeah, bullshit. How many fetuses did he abort? Good Christian. What a fucking jackass.
He is literally pushing Democrat Party talking points via Mark Levin. And we know it's Mark Levin because it's word for word. I mean, I knew when I saw it yesterday. I'm not going to go ape and just start attacking Trump here. Now, I don't think having Roger on saying nice things about him is going to make him be nice to me. I'm like, oh, please don't hurt me. For me personally, it's good to break away from Trump because he's never helped me any of that, but because he was better for the country than...
No. This is gonzo journalism, Alex. Let's call it for what it really is. You're distancing yourself from Trump because you need to accrete followers that are on the extreme right. And that's the reason why you brought Nick Fuentes into your orbit, because you kicked out Paul Joseph Watson because he's too old. Alex is a bullshitter. It's a bullshitter. A bullshitter. And he tells you how to slow down. He tells you how to get healthy, yet he can't get healthy. I'm telling you how to do it and what the science is because I'm educated, all right? I know how this works. And not only that, I do it and it's helping me. And it's helped thousands of people that I have told this to, all right? Look at Alex. The proof is in the pudding. You want to see how the cow ate the cabbage? I mean, my God, look at him. He looks 65 years old. Is he taking his supplements? Does his supplements work? What the fuck's wrong with this guy? Oh, it's gonzo journalism all the time. It's no matter what the news is, it has to be around him. He knows better. He knows the mosaic. He sees it all. Blah 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 blah. Yet when it came to being on the battlefield, when it came to making sure that bioweapons were not developed and that further carnage would not ensue in future generations, he fell short. He fell short. He failed during COVID. He failed because he knew better. Because he knew better. The reality of the situation is pathogen was made. The reality of the situation is inoculations harm. And everyone was painted into a corner, and there was no way out. Oh, I just didn't, There may be some conspiracy theorists might say, well, I didn't get the inoculation, so I'm fine. No, you're going to get the pathogen eventually. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. Because guess what? You can't get rid of it. And oh, by the way, once you get it, you can't clear it from your body. 100% fact. But he knows better. He knows better. Yeah, he knows better. Why is there so many incidences of more cancers? You ever wonder about that? Oh, because the genes that are in the pathogen actually are oncogenic. Yeah. And the inoculation is oncogenic. Yeah. Dipshits, total dipshits. But, we're past that crisis now, but yet the ones that are really paying attention to the aftershock and signals of the aftershock, we're still living it. And there's going to be two or three generations that are going to be living through this. You have the geriatric generation living through the aftershock. You have Gen X living through it, the aftershock. You have the millennials. And it's questionable how it's going to affect the infants of the crisis. We don't know yet. They have learning disabilities. Most of that is because of environmental and not so much genetic. So maybe 4 generations will be affected by this whole aftershock. But Alex Jones knows better. Alex Jones knows better, yet he didn't finish his secondary education. No, he's a wealthy individual. He's done well for himself financially. But he's a gonzo journalist. Just because you're successful financially doesn't mean that you're truthful. Doesn't mean that you're correct. Doesn't mean that you have virtue. Doesn't mean that you're a pillar of someone to emulate. All right? I'm just tired of gonzo journalism. He is the epitome of it. Then the next one is Stu Peters. He's the next Alex Jones. At least Stu is fit. Alex is just a slob.
Democrats, I just took it. Just like I didn't care about all the attacks, I don't care about CNN playing clips of me and MSNBC and all. What does that do? Nothing. They have tiny audiences. I hate being associated with them, but I have to tell the truth.
Well, I start.
So, when you've had 20 million views on YouTube and everywhere else, and tens of millions on Facebook, and you've been syndicated since you were 25 years old. I mean, it's like, I am not trying to become famous. I'm not trying to get bigger. I'm trying to save the country and the world, because if Trump's recovery goes under, which the Trader Hormuz is doing, we go into bankruptcy and the dollar loses its hegemony and we are all F-U-C-K.
First of all, there is a robustness of our economy that even if when Trump gets out of office, I should say, and we have a Democrat in the executive branch and Democrats running the legislative branch. All right? It's not going to be a free fall of the currency. It's not that we're going to just implode, but there will be a slow deterioration. But that's because of the erosion of God, country, and family. And if people are more centrist, little left of center, little right of center, and centrist, that crowd, which is the bulk of the United States, will weather the storm just fine. It's the extremes. It's the extremes. The ultra left wants to have these communistic programs, and the ultra right wants to be isolationists. And by being an isolationist, you're going to lose your empire. By being America first, in the sense of Alex Jones, when is it okay to actually control the freedom of navigation through the 9-dash line? Alex, what are you going to do? Alex, what are you going to do when Taiwan gets attacked by China? What are you going to do when actually China expands its hegemonic power in the Pacific and is able to threaten the archipelago of Alaska or the island chain of Hawaii? Because Hawaii is not just 5 islands. It's a lot of islands in the tune of over 100. A lot of people don't know that. What are you going to do, Alex? Both sides of the spectrum can cause harm to our country. Alex Jones, during the tariff crisis in April of last year, stated that the stock market's going to crash, the dollar's going to crash, the bond market's going to crash, and go to gold and and Bitcoin and all this crap. What did Dr. Paul Cottrell say? Don't be fearful. America will always surprise you. Don't bet against the United States. J.P. Morgan said this in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Never bet against the United States. Ever. So Dr. Paul Cottrell told you, buy when the S&P 500 went down to 4,500, 4,600. And if you paid attention to me, you would have made money. If you paid attention to Alex Jones and all of the other economists that were saying the tariffs were going to implode the economy and have rapid inflation, they were all wrong. They were all wrong, and you would have lost money. These economists were saying, move into safe havens like Europe. What? And then the dollar started to rally during the crisis in Iran. Why? Because we are the safe haven. Now, Democrats and a New World Order, all right, that some of the Republican Party is aligned to, like the neocons, this New World Order in the context of Bush Sr. can erode our hegemonic power and erode our constitutional freedoms. But the system is more robust than you think. It's more anti-fragile than what Alex is saying. So if you believe Alex, then you wouldn't have made money in the market during the tariff crisis. If you listen to Dr. Paul Cottrell, you would have made money. And now people would say, well, the dollar is weakening. It's going back to its 10-year average because it was elevated because it was a safe haven during COVID. But people have goldfish memories and can't look at a chart that's 10 years back or 15 years back and look at an average. Or understand that there were some moments in time where they were idiosyncratic. Really, Alex? What the big problem is, it's not just a Democratic Party, it's the ultra liberals in society and the ultra right in society that will erode God, country, and family. Now, people would say, if it's ultra right, how can it be eroding God, country, and family and the foundation of our constitutional republic? How could it be eroding the Enlightenment? Let's take a look at this a little deeper. God, religion. All right, ultra rights are monolithic with the religion. They're actually, these types of people are the reason why we have the separation of church and state, because they're promoting only one type of religion. They're proselytizing one type of religion. You know, there's a reason why people moved away from Christianity, was because of the over proselytizing. It was the overburdening of the religion onto one's life. There wasn't a middle ground. And what happened because of the over proselytizing, there was a equal reaction that moved towards atheism or being agnostic. So the Charlie Kirks out there, the ultra rights, they're proselytizing. They're not about the God component of the pillar. It's their God component of the pillar. And that is not what our Constitution is based on. So just with the God pillar, you can see that the ultra right and the ultra left are both wrong. The ultra left don't want to have any religion. The ultra right wants you to have their religion. That is not what our constitutional republic is based on. Let's look at the second pillar, Alex. Country. The ultra liberals want to have no borders and a one world order and, lose our sovereignty. I think that's been well established, especially during the Biden administration. Let's look at the ultra right. Just because you wave the American flag doesn't mean that you're for country. Actually, it's disrespectful to wear a pin of the American flag on the lapel. That was a post 9/11 thing. Very Nazi-ish, if you noticed. You're not supposed to be wearing the flag on a non-uniform outfit. It's disrespectful, actually. But we have, in some weird way, think that it's okay. You're not supposed to have the flag on you unless it's a uniform. So now you look at the ultra right. How could you be for country where you have existential threats emerging and you're not willing to fight them? How can you be America first pacifist and be for country? Sometimes you need to be pragmatic. Sometimes you need to balance domestic and international policy and not be an absolutist, like pushing a one-type religion. See the absolutism here? This is the problem with the ultra-right. And now let's take a look at family. Now, the ultra-left, they want their abortions. They kill more than 65 million babies. Alex Jones is one of them. Alex Jones has aborted babies. He's knocked up people. And he's going to tell you he's a Christian. Really? He's a bullshit artist. Now, let's think about this for a second here. You got the ultra left that want to continue on killing fetuses because 65 million isn't enough since 1972. They want to have gender dysphoria. They think that having, a single female mother is fine, while Dr. Thomas Sowell is saying the problem with the black community is this whole single mother issue because of welfare. And to have that as an acceptance within society. Well, that's the ultra left. All right. Now let's take a look at the ultra right with family. All right. They are wanting to promote family creation. Many of them want the trad wife, the traditional wife. Okay, so that seems like they want to get rid of abortion. All right, that seems like it's fitting in line with the pillar of family. But multiculturalism, they don't want. They want purity, blood purity. Well, that sounds a hell of a lot like Nazism. That sounds like a hell of a lot like fascism. Now, the ultra left went too far with the multiculturalism, where anything goes, because they, the ultra left, aligned with a postmodern ethic, while the ultra right seems to be the antithesis of it, the absolute antithesis of it, where it's about purity, blood purity. And this is where you get the anti-Islamic, anti-Jewish, anti-whatever. And it wasn't too long ago in the 1800s, Americans hated Irish. Why? Because they were Catholic. Because most of America was Protestants. So this is the problem with the ultra-right. So are they really about family? Or are they about some sort of blood purity, which is a problem? Because we're a country that there's an amalgamation. You don't want too much of an overflow of immigrants because they're supposed to inculcate their way of life into what we would call being an American. But the ultra-right, they don't believe that. They want all immigrants to get kicked out. Listen to Nick Fuentes. He's saying that all people that aren't WASP are a problem. So ultra-right and ultra-left, based on my assessment, it has eroded God, country, and family. And it's the middle ground, slightly to the left, slightly to the right, and true centrist. And that's the bulk of the country. Alex Jones is just as wrong as a crazy ultra left wingnut. Now let's think about a wingnut. You take a look at a wingnut. It has two wings and it gets screwed around, right? And in the center is where the actual connection is to the screw. And you got the two sides circling each other, screwing the middle America. Alex Jones, AOC are just wingnuts screwing America.
And seriously, understanding the dangerous history we're part of right now, the dangerous time we're in.
Really? Really?
Don't have a normalcy by it.
Really? He is so serious. He sees the danger. I've been saying since October 7th that the world is going to have a curse. I also told you that something really bad is going to happen and the aftershock during the crisis that we had in 2020. Now, better listen to me here. If America doesn't get their shit together, there is going to be a big curse coming. And the probability is increasing as we get closer to the countdown. And that countdown is 9/11/2026. And it's not coincidental from a metaphysical point of view because of the fib sequence of history. It's not coincidental that George Bush Sr. stated the New World Order on 9/11 in the UN. It is not coincidental that the towers fell on 9/11. It is not coincidental on the gate that's going to be opening up in 2026. And if you want to go far back enough, there are religious scholars that can move the date of when the creation of the quote the world happened based on creationism, all right, which I don't believe. I don't believe in creationism. I'm an evolutionist, all right? But there is a wisdom to be had here with the creation story. There's some wisdom to extract from it. 9/11 was the start of the world. So the whole fib sequence started of human history on 9/11, based on creationism. All of it, all of it. The centuries, that each generation in the spiral gets wider and wider and wider. But every time it gets to that point of repeat and it locks into 9/11, there's some sort of flow that's direct flow from the origin or the genesis of creation. Now, I'm still an evolutionist, but there's something to be learned about human history and what has been written down in these ancient texts. But Alex Jones, he knows better. He knows better. He knows so much that he doesn't even need to read the Zohar. He knows so much because he's a Christian nationalist. He knows so much. But yet, this has been written down, what we are living in for 2,000 years or more. 2,000 years or more. And there's elements of it in Revelations. But Revelations is not something new. Revelations is a newer text on something older.
It's about this. We're all in grave danger. This morning, I made the decision when I was lifting weights to get blood pumping your brain really working well.
Then why is he such a fat ass?
And hit the weights, do some aerobic moves. That's what we're doing this morning. I was pouring sweat. Nice 8-minute workout. And I said,
pig sweat too.
I'm just going to scorch earth Trump, get him back on track. Only way to do it is to go after him viciously. Because, I mean, look, the Democrats are infinitely more corrupt than him. He wasn't really corrupt the first term. The insider trading now, all the kids of the cabinet officials, it is just robbery town. And I'm like, am I going to just sit here and wait for Todd Blanche to indict me or something? I'm going to just sit here and wait for Trump to attack me. But I'm like, well, I need him to get back on track. I need him to turn things around. But I'm also sitting here like, I'm not your average bear. Like, I know a lot. And I know right where to hit everything. And you're like, well, you're supposed to do that. Yeah, but it's like paltry compared to the big picture. And I've mentioned a lot of it. But I don't want to overthink it. I'm just telling Trump something right now. The globalists sued my family, who wasn't even involved with me, and bankrupted them. I could take me being attacked. I've been through a lot of stuff. And if I see any inkling, with Mark Levin, everybody calling about me being deplatformed again, and you're calling for everybody's arrest, if I see any of that, and it's not like I'm saying this so they leave me alone. I'm on the verge of it, but there's so much, the Democrats are so much worse that I don't want to make my full-time show a war against Trump. But here's the thing, you've already shit all over me.
Gonzo journalism.
And if you try to rub it in, I just, at that point, I don't care anymore. So if you think I've been coming after you, if you think that I'm trying to get clicks by attacking you so the Democrats don't buy anything from me and don't like me want to put me in jail, if you think I've been on your ass, say one more thing. One more thing out of your mouth. And Laura Loomer, send him this, okay? One more thing. When I've gone through hell back in your ass because you were the lesser of two evils, then I'm going to show you how to cow eat the cabbage. Do one more thing. You should be kissing my ass. But instead, you shit all over me and rub it in. Okay. I'm a Christian, but I ain't Christ-like. I hate the Democrats. I hate the left. I hate the WM. I hate the globalists so much that I've sat here and put up with crap. You not defending me. You letting Todd Blanche kill the investigations of what the DOJ and CIA did to me and my family. And I just sit high road, don't really talk about it. I'll take it for the greater good. But there's only so far that I can take it. Go ahead. Say one more thing about me. Go ahead and attack me one more time. Do it.
Yeah, he's a tough guy.
You'll find out.
Yeah. He's a tough guy at 25 to 26 BMI. He's a tough guy. He's a real tough guy. Yeah. He's a tough guy. He's a tough guy lying to the American public multiple times. But sometimes he gets things right. But the thing is that he's a gonzo journalist that thinks everything revolves around him. And there's a lot that he doesn't understand. There's a lot that he gets wrong. And when he gets things wrong, it actually harms people. But, the thing is that he's been blessed with money. He's been blessed. God blessed him for some reason. He's not living poor. Most of the people that are watching him are far less successful monetarily. But does he deserve this? No, we can't really judge God's blessing to people or God's curses on people. We can't. We don't understand it. Maybe when he dies, he goes to hell and he has a very bad experience in his purification of his soul. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. We don't understand why bad people get the term is pernussa, but the get from our perspective a blessing. We don't understand it. Why other people don't get a blessing? Maybe when they die, they have a better experience when their soul is being purified. We don't understand it. And it's something that even Moses had a problem with and was trying to trying to understand this and complain to God about it. That he didn't understand this. That on our plane, why is it that people get blessed, but they don't deserve it? He's an example of it. Trump is an example of it. But do you really want to fight against the blessing of Trump? My God, this guy is way up there in the stratosphere in terms of blessings. Alex Jones is lesser, but he's been blessed. Why? I don't know. Don't get it. Don't understand it. But I do know this. He's a gonzo journalist.
Because I know where to hit you.
Yeah, see.
He
knows. See, everything is about him. Everything. See, this is a classic.
I want to picture Mar-a-Lago, your tuxedos, a bunch of parents posing. I'm not looking for government contracts. I've never asked for anything. Ed Martin contacted me and said, incredible evidence of the government attacking you. They had all the proof. The DOJ funding the lawsuits, ringing it all, and he's a great guy. And then Todd Blanche kills it and then calls me a kook and says I don't deserve to have my rights defended. I'm in civil rights lawsuits. That's fine. I didn't blame Trump. I just said, okay, I'll take it.
Gonzo journalism.
I will not take any more of your crap. I've taken your betrayals, your narcissism, the open kleptocratic insider trading that is just wholesale in your administration. I've mentioned it, but said, yeah, it's just par for the course now. But I'm not looking for a fight, but if you want one, you came to the right place. So I'm like a rattlesnake. We're not really much snakes. What?
All right, that's enough of Alex Jones. I can't take him anymore. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor so you don't turn into an Alex Jones, an ultra-right wingnut. And you don't want to turn into an ultra-left wingnut like AOC. Clarity factor is a very powerful neurostack. This will help you to focus, get rid of that brain fog, and over time you're going to improve your neuroplasticity and your dendritic connections. You're going to have more cognition. You're going to think faster. You're going to have better memory. And when you're reducing stress, when you're working out, when you're applying a holistic approach with this, you're improving your brain function. And brain function is super important. A lot of people don't realize. I'm sure Alex Jones doesn't realize. Good health for your liver and your kidney will help to detoxify your body and your bloodstream. And when you're doing that, you're actually improving brain function. When your liver and your kidneys don't work properly, especially through the aftershock of 2020, because people are having problems with their liver and their kidneys and not filtering their blood properly or not detoxifying their body properly or not producing the proper metabolism, you actually are causing inflammation in your body that will lead to a leaky blood-brain barrier and lead to inflammation in the brain and cause amyloid plaque. Do you want that? No. So it's really important to take the proper supplements and bring down that inflammation so you have better brain function. Go to my store and get the Clarity Factor. Magnesium and zinc helps with brain function so you don't turn into an Alex Jones. You take this supplement and you will not turn into an Alex Jones. Magnesium and zinc also boosts up your immune system so you're not sickly like Alex Jones. All right? And magnesium and zinc will help to improve the efficacy of vitamin D3. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your skin so you don't look like an Alex Jones. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your immune system so you're not sickly like Alex Jones. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with brain function so you don't think like Alex Jones. Omega-3 helps with your cardiovascular health. You don't want to have high blood pressure like Alex Jones. Just look at him. It looks like he's going to have a stroke every time he has a show. Omega-3 will bring down systemic inflammation and help to control your lipid profile. So you're reducing plaque. And when you have a better cardiovascular health, you have better brain function. Why? Dr. Paul Cottrell, why? Why is it that when having better cardiovascular health, that you have better brain function? Because you have better blood flow to your brain. And you'll have the nutrients to maintain that positive neuroplasticity. Keep those connections, and therefore your memory and your cognition are maintained and improved. There is a direct correlation between poor cardiovascular health and poor brain function. Please go to my store and get the omega-3. And don't be an Alex Jones. And Myotrol. If you're 40 years of age or older, male or female, you have a hard time building muscle and maintaining muscle. Why? Because of methylation of your genes. Taking Myotrol, because it has the polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans, it will help with the gene expression to build muscle and maintain muscle, to reduce atrophy. And when you do that, you'll have more musculature. You do some resistance training, you'll have more musculature, and you will improve your posture. You'll be more energetic. There's a correlation between leg musculature and longevity. But also, by building muscle, you are producing more myokines. And myokines have been found to actually be neuroprotective. That means your brain function improves when you actually have more muscle and not so much fat. And by having those myokines and the BDNF, the brain-derived neurofactor, you're protecting your neurons. And you're protecting those neural connections. Super important. Myotrol. Don't be an Alex Jones. olive leaf extract, dual purpose. It helps to improve your immune system and your cardiovascular system. And by having a good immune system, you're also improving your brain function because you're not getting sick as often and causing a lot of inflammation. And remember, chronic inflammation leads to neurodegeneration. Olive leaf extract, bringing down that inflammation and helping to control the lipid profile. So it's also improving your cardiovascular health. Because if you don't have inflammation at the intima level of your blood vessels, if you have less oxidized LDL, you have less plaque formation. And again, better cardiovascular health leads to better brain function. So don't be an Alex Jones. And this is the reason why DrPaulCottrell is the most comprehensive, the most accurate in terms of longevity. You don't have to be Brian Johnson spending $2 million a year to slow down aging. All you got to do is just follow my protocol and the holistic approach. So you're not on pharmacopoeia and having all the side effects of pharmacopoeia. Take my advice or don't take my advice. But don't be surprised something bad happens to you if you don't take the advice. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. And don't be an Alex Jones. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and realize that info wars don't work. Kinetic wars do. And it has always been that way throughout all of human history. All right, let's play the National Review and their critique of another right-wing wingnut. I think it's about Tucker Carlson. You know, Mr. Bowtie, blue blood, Swanson family, didn't finish college, applied to the CIA and says that he wasn't accepted. Ends up on CNN. He's a conservative, knows it all, and now he's Duck Dynasty.
In the Iran war. Pay for Iran. Pray
no.
for the designs of the Jews to fail.
This is not about. I thought this was going to be about Tucker. This is dealing with Nick Fuentes.
Could do. Iran is fighting for the whole world right now. I'm sorry, National Review, and whoa, that's strong stuff, right? I'm not even sure Jane Fonda prayed for the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. So what Fuentes is saying there is symptomatic of how the so-called woke right, for lack of a better phrase, has a very dark view of its own country. Now, why is that? Because most of these people portray themselves as super nationalists, and usually nationalists are very into their own country rather than thinking it's a twisted and dark place, such that you might actually be rooting for the enemy in a no kidding shooting war. So let's go through the reasons. I think we are seeing this phenomenon because it's very important to understand, and this is obviously driving a fierce ideological war within the right. I think first factor is the isolationist right overlap of a lot of these people thought they controlled Donald Trump. So they thought Trump was an isolationist.
Now think about what he's saying
isolated.
from the National Review, which was founded by William F. Buckley. Doesn't that sound a lot like Alex Jones? Alex Jones thinks that he can just tell Trump what to do. That he's so important. That he sees the big picture.
And it was never true. He was never an isolationist. And then also in the second term, he's actually been hyperactive in terms of foreign policy. So this led to extreme disappointment, which led, on the one hand, to a massive reevaluation of Donald Trump. Now, yes, Donald Trump made wild threats in the run-up to the ceasefire with Iran. Are we really shocked by that? Do we not remember fire and fury with North Korea in the first term? And he also dropped an F-bomb in a Truth Social post on Easter morning. Bad. Shouldn't have done it. But also, we're shocked. We think he's usually very polite in all his communications and observes all the norms. No, no. And in fact, members of the woke right, like Tucker Carlson, they celebrated this stuff or looked past it or said it had benefits to Trump. And anyone noticing this aspect of his character who might have downsides, that they were quislings and weaklings and just didn't get Donald Trump, or they're opposed to his voters. Now, Tucker Carlson sounds like a so-called member of the Committee to Save the World during the first term. This was the establishment types that considered Trump a danger and thought he had to be controlled. Now, Tucker is not an establishment type, but he's a representative of the woke right who thinks Trump is a danger and has to be controlled. Here he was calling on people around Trump to get the nuclear codes to stop a potential nuclear conflict.
Figure out the codes on the football yourself. Because everything hangs in the balance right now. This is not hysteria. This is 100% real.
Now, there's another way to deal with the disappointment with Trump, not mutually exclusive with the one we just talked about, which is to believe that he's being controlled by shadowy forces that happen to be Jews. The isolationist right has had a major focus on this big New York Times report on Trump's decision to go to war with Iran. So they focus on various details of the story. Bibi Netanyahu comes for a very quiet meeting with Donald Trump in the run-up to the war. They're sitting in the Situation Room, and Trump is not at the head of the table the way the President of the United States is in that room or any other room. They sit across from each other as though they're equals around that table. Netanyahu provides a very optimistic case of what might happen if the U.S. and Israel launch a war.
What if you could clean your retainer at the touch of a button? No more brushing or tablets. Over 4 years ago, our team of engineers knew there had to be a quicker, easier, and more...
If the U.S. and Israel launch a war, especially with regard to possible regime change. And then, a little less focus on this, but the story describes how Trump's aides, a lot of them, they don't believe the optimistic take on regime change, but they don't forcefully push back against Trump, who's obviously inclined to launch a military operation against Iran. So what's the big takeaway from this? Who decides what foreign leaders Trump is going to meet with? Donald Trump. Who decides where the foreign leaders sit in the Situation Room if they're meeting there with them? Donald Trump. Who decides whether or not to believe what a foreign leader is saying about a military operation or anything else? Donald Trump. Who's created a situation where he has a lot of aides around him who are too deferential or too afraid to give them their frank views on important things? Donald Trump. This is all Donald Trump. But the woke right wants to deflect from that because it's uncomfortable for them, some of them still, to be too critical of Donald Trump. And then also, more deeply, they are conspiracy theorists. Now, conspiracies obviously sometimes are real. Going back in history, there was a conspiracy to assassinate Abraham Lincoln. There was a conspiracy to assassinate Archduke Ferdinand. More recently, there was a conspiracy to cover up the origins of COVID at that Wuhan lab in China. There's a conspiracy to cover up Joe Biden's true mental and physical state. All that is true. But if you see deeper conspiracies everywhere, what happens, you begin to have an extremely dark interpretation of your own government. It's not just that the people running the government are weak. It's not just that they're incompetent. It's not just that they are, yes, in certain situations and circumstances, ill-intentioned. No, it's that they're evil. This is why it's such a key part of the worldview of a Tucker Carlson or a Candace Owens.
That's why
that the United States government killed JFK, assassinated a president of the United States, and have been lying about it ever since. And Tucker Carlson sees these kind of conspiracies everywhere, right? The USS Liberty, that spy ship that was accidentally and tragically shot up by Israeli forces during the Six-Day War. It was a deliberate attack by Israel, and the U.S. government was in on it and knew about it and is still covering it chemtrails. The government is using commercial aviation to spread these chemicals in the atmosphere for dastardly reasons. The government might be covering up the real killer of Charlie Kirk. Obviously, this is a cracked lunatic obsession of Candace Owens. But once you're believing these kind of things, our government is not just wrong. Our government doesn't need checks and checks and balances. It's not just that it can't be trusted in every circumstance. It is evil. It needs to be stopped, including its influence abroad. And this is how you get the woke right linking up with the woke left, with the anti-American left, and the likes of, say, Glenn Greenwald. Right. So the same thing we're just talking about here too in U.S.
This is the reason why I was saying that when you take it, I'm saying it differently, but we're getting to the same conclusion here. The ultra-right and the ultra-left both are eroding God, country, and family. And they're antithetical to the values of the Enlightenment, of John Locke. Life, liberty, and property rights. They're both wrong. Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, AOC, Chuck Schumer, all of them, all these people on the extremes, they meet together and they're eroding God, country, and family in the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment isn't Nazism. Actually, the Enlightenment is antithetical to that. Nietzsche, who was the philosopher that the Nazis, the philosophy of Nietzsche was a cornerstone of fascism and Nazism. Nietzsche comes from a postmodern perspective. Postmodernism. This whole philosophy of postmodernism has caused lots of problems. Now, Nietzsche, with this whole idea of the Ubermensch, Superman, all right, and extreme purity, and taking certain things that Nietzsche said out of context, you end up getting Nazism. But also, when you take a look at relativism that comes out of the postmodern philosophy, you get also ultra-liberals. Anything goes. It's okay. It's okay to have gender fluidity according to the ultra-left. It's okay to abort your fetuses because of the ultra-left. They're both at fault. Postmodern philosophy has eroded the Enlightenment. And we need to get back there. We need to get back to the Enlightenment. There needs to be a rebirth. And this is sort of what's happening with going into the age of Aquarius. All right?
We're overly ambitious, that we're overly idealistic, that we can be naive, that we can overestimate what we can actually achieve in the world, and it sometimes backfires and we should be more modest. All those are totally legitimate points, and to some extent, I would agree with them. No, it's that the United States is an overweening imperialistic power that exercises a malign influence in the world. This is the classic new left critique of American power that's also migrated into elements of the new right. The U.S. needs to be stopped abroad. U.S. power needs to be taken down a notch. And I think this is what is behind Carlson's somewhat wishful interpretation that the U.S. predominance around the world is over, and we now live in a multipolar world. And by the way, American Protestant Christianity has also been destroyed.
And so you're watching the end of the global American empire, the unipolar.
Well, let's dive into this a little bit, all right? Look at his Duck Dynasty look. It's wood paneling. There's some, on the other side when he's interviewing someone, there's some pictures of hunting, right? I don't know if he's in Montana or wherever, but it's If you like that thing, it's more naturalistic. All right. But why is it that he's trying to spin himself on his show as some sort of Duck Dynasty guy, which is totally not blue blood Swanson family bullshit, right? And he's still in a button up shirt. The point here is this is manufactured. This is what he's doing is manufactured, right? It's critiqued. It's tailor made for you for consumption. It's not. It's not like raw, telling you how he thinks it is, right? It's highly produced. All right. Okay. So with that said, let's go to some of the details of what he's saying. All right. We'll dive into some of the details. Let's replay it.
And so you're watching the end of the global American empire, the unipolar world. That was great, by the way, well, it lasted. But it's over. And you're watching the...
Well, wait a minute here. The end of the American empire. Now, we could lose our empire if we retreat. If we don't actually fight against our enemies that are saying they want to exterminate us because we're the evil Satan, the great Satan. Because they will become an existential threat to us later if we don't handle the problem. Now, it is true that at some point, when you have, there's two metrics of a falling empire. When you're in interest to service your bond debt is higher than what you spend in military, you have a declining empire. This is research based on Neil Ferguson. Also, another metric is that at some point, the overall debt of the nation reaches to such a level relative to GDP that you have a declining empire. The question is, are we at that point yet? I don't think so. But we could be approaching it. Other nations are, such as Germany, France, England, is definitely a declining empire, for sure, 100%. But there's this debt cliff. But when those nations start, because we don't live in a bubble, when those nations start to fall because of their debt cliff, there's going to be a need for a safe haven. And so this allows for us to stay buoyant. Right? So there's a feedback loop. Now, was this planned? Probably not. America's blessed. We don't know why. But you better not go against the blessing. It's like going against Trump, right? It doesn't make much sense if he's blessed. Right? So, it is true that when the fall of the Berlin Wall fell, that there was a hubris that took place. You could see it right after the Gulf War. There was a hubris during the conferences right after the war. And there was a positioning of the United States and NATO with its expansionism. And this set in motion Putin and some of the reasons why he's concerned about NATO expansionism. All right? Which is justified, because it did happen. But I still think that America still has a little bit more gas in the tank, all right, for our empire. But if you don't maintain the fringes of the empire, if you do not strengthen the core of the empire, its domestic policies, then you are a declining empire. So if you are America first, a pacifist, some sort of nationalist, all right, then you want the periphery to erode. And we'll have a declining empire there. I mean, at what point do you actually fight against the Chinese? And don't think that we're in the Middle East not because of China. We're more in the Middle East because of China than Israel. That's a fact. Why? Because we need to be able to control the oil flow to China if we go to war with China. So even the America First don't even see the big chess game that's being played. All right, let's continue with Tucker Duck Dynasty.
And of whatever American Protestant Christianity, one of the greatest and most positive forces in the history of this world, whatever it became after the Second World War, which is something unrecognizable.
So you add this all up, Donald Trump is dangerous. He's controlled by malign forces. The United States government itself has been controlled by malign forces going back decades and decades and decades now. And the United States is too powerful abroad. Well, you get all that.
The WASP, this white Anglo, Saxon Protestant aspect to what Tucker's saying is true that it eroded, but it eroded because of the post-modernism philosophy that started to take hold after World War II. And also the baby boomers, the worst generation ever, has eroded some of those God, country, and family ideals that made the country great. So Tucker is slightly right with this, that this Protestant worth ethic has been eroded because of postmodernism, and that we have to get back to the Enlightenment and take lessons that there's a reason why people went to the postmodern philosophy. It was the over-proselytizing of the Christian faith, and not the realization that the God component to our Constitution, our religious component of the Constitution, because freedom, we have freedom of religion, but we also have freedom from religion, all right? The Protestants, and I would even put in that category the Catholics, were a little bit more absolutists. And that's not what our Constitution is, and that's not what the Enlightenment is. So people with over-proselytizing, no matter what the religion is, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, whatever it is, it will push a large group of people towards the opposite. And that's what happened during the baby boomers with postmodernism. So if we want to get to the core problem here, Tucker, Duck Dynasty, we have to get rid of postmodernism and get back to the Enlightenment. That's the issue. That's you don't get it through just the Protestant way, the Protestant ethic. That's only one part of the pillar. It's not the full pillar because it's a little bit more monolithic. There's also the country and the family part of the pillar. But the problem with the ultra-right is because it's their knee-jerk reaction of the ultra-left now. And so now they're going to the extreme. You have atheists, you have communists, you want people to take away your property rights. They want to be lazy. So the knee-jerk reaction is Christianity, full bore, trad wipe, and, be insular. But the thing is that even though Nietzsche was part of the postmodern philosophers, he falls under that umbrella. And there's many things that he wrote that led to Nazism. He also warned that the slave morality is through Christianity is the death of the society because of empathy. And other writers, suicidal empathy. This is another component of what Nietzsche was saying, but I think it's Gad that wrote about suicidal empathy. Well, the society starts feeling bad about, expansionism or colonialism, and has to, be apologetic, and you've got to be more multicultural, right? These are all elements of Christianity where you turn the other cheek. You don't, you just wait until, some sort of Messiah comes down and saves you. No, you have to take responsibility. Realize your life is in your hands, and you hope that you get a blessing that things will turn out better. But you have to take the responsibility and move forward. Not just sit there and wait and be apologetic. So Nietzsche warned that if you continue on this path where the society is too Christian, you will end up with a weakened society. All right? So there's slave morality and this empathy that led to porous borders. But it gets a little bit more complicated when you try to use philosophy to explain what's happening in modern text, because it doesn't map completely. No time period and no philosophy ends up completely describing what is happening with human psychology, human decision making at that period of time. It's a loose construct. But there is something to be learned from Nietzsche about this slave morality, and that it weakens the society. Yet, you have to have some sort of religiousness to be able to have stronger family, stronger affinity for country, and stronger affinity to God. But there is such a thing as taking it too far. And this is what Nietzsche is saying about the slave morality. And the church. Look at the perfect example of slave morality. Look at the Pope. Right? The Pope is, the head of the Catholic religion. Right? But the thing is that you can see the slave morality. Just stop the war. Just stop the war. All wars are bad. That's what Nietzsche was warning about. That when you think in those terms, you are actually a slave to a system through empathy.
Do together, and that's how you get this kind of bizarre rant from Tucker Carlson.
Is it possible that what you're watching is a very stealthy yet incredibly effective attack on what, from a Christian perspective, is the true faith, belief in Jesus? Is it possible the president sees this in bigger terms? Sees this as the fulfillment of something, or the elevation to some higher office beyond President of the United States?
So Carlson's suggesting that Donald Trump might be part of some satanic project. Now, what country around the world famously considers the United States the great Satan, right? Iran. And then he put on top of this that for a lot of these people, Israel is the main problem in the Middle East and perhaps in the international system broadly, and here in our domestic politics as well. So Iran might not be the greatest country in the world, but at least it opposes our ally, Israel. So it's a perverse thinking that the enemy of our ally must be our friend, at least in some sense. So this is how you get Nick Fuentes saying that we should pray for Iran. No thanks. I'll pray for the President of the United States. I'll pray for our service members, and I'll pray for the United States of America, no matter what the woke right says. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.
We as a society need to get our shit together. Both the ultra-right and the ultra-left are wrong. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soap so you don't look like Alice Jones. All right? You can get it in lemongrass and also in peppermint. Please go to my store, get a few bars for your household. Very high quality. It'll help the pores of your skin, help the health of your skin, and it will help to neutralize because it has structural nanosilver. Another great product is the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation at the gum line, improve the health of your gum line, neutralize, because it has the structural nanosilver, has no fluoride, and with good oral hygiene, you're actually improving your cardiovascular health. A lot of people don't understand that. And this is part of the reason why people have poor oral hygiene, have poor cardiovascular health. But it's not the only reason. But good oral hygiene is super important, especially in your geriatric years. Structural nanosilver gel. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser. They use them the same way. They're dual purpose. You can use it as a daily skincare. Apply it on your skin every day. Neutralize and help the health of your skin. You can put it on a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn and help to heal it quicker. And if you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well because of the cold season, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your ears, around your nose. Lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. If you're having problems breathing because of a stuffy nose or a drainage, lightly coat your nostrils, and what will happen is it'll dry that drainage and allow you to breathe at night. So it's a great way to speed up the process and heal, and also to protect. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the gels. These are very high quality. Make sure you have some at work and at home. You never know when you need it. You never know when you need it. And this is way better than Perel. Perel evaporates in 30 seconds because it's alcohol-based. And it cracks your skin. This heals your skin and stays active for 5.5 hours. Super strong relief. This you apply topically on arthritic pain, on a joint that has arthritis. You can apply it on your forehead, your temples, and your shoulder muscles, neck muscles if you have a tension headache. If you have a sprain or a muscle ache, pulled muscle, apply it to that area. This will relieve the pain within 90 seconds. Get this super strong relief. Max 35 or cleanse. Boost up your innate immune system. Take a teaspoon a day every day. Swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and swallow it. Do that every day. I've been doing this for 6 years. 6 years, every day. And what it'll do is improve your oral cavity, so you're also improving your cardiovascular health. You're improving your gums, the health of your gums. You're improving your mucosal barrier and the health of your epithelial cells within your oral pharynx. Super important to boost up that immune system. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. And then go back to your maintenance dose once you clear your cold. Very simple to do. Get the max 35, it's 35 parts per million, or cleanse, which is 30 parts per million. All right, let's play. I want to play CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies. This is a great resource, all right, especially with what's happening in the oil markets. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this. It's going to be talking about the oil crisis isn't over even with a ceasefire. So let's dissect this.
Welcome back to Energy Shots. My name is Joseph Mikett. It's a beautiful April day here in Washington. It's Masters Weekend, and I'm trying to get my colleague and friend Kevin. On Tuesday, we faced a fork in the road. It was either the end of a civilization or an uneasy ceasefire. Thankfully, we arrived at uneasy ceasefire. That's where we are today. What's your read of today's situation? Is the war over? Are things better?
Well, let's start with today's inflation numbers here in the United States. The Bureau of Labor Statistics put out its CPI numbers for March, and they're already showing inflation getting hot. 0.9%, month on month, 3.3% year on year. And in that first figure, 74% of that 0.9% attributable to motor fuels. The year on year, 19% of that attributable to motor fuels. That thanks to my colleague Matt Picard back at Clearview, who ran those numbers for us just before the episode. So the political situation here at home is going to be informed by that. And meanwhile, the geopolitical situation is getting complex. We have, I mean, a number of things to discuss, and I know you're going to get to where the world is going. Yep. But here's just a sampling of where I see things standing right now. Oil markets are still pricing risk at 96 Brent. Gasoline prices retreated 1.3 cents here in the United States overnight. Kuwait reported drone attacks, but otherwise the ceasefire seems to be holding. Israel holding preparatory talks next week here in Washington with Lebanon. Talks tomorrow, probably, in Islamabad. J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner talking to Abbas Araghchi from Iran, running foreign minister, and also Mohammed Bashir Ghalibaf, the head of parliament. And meanwhile, there are technical limitations affecting travel through the strait, which, if you wondered what technical limitations were when they announced the ceasefire, apparently, according to Saeed Khatibzadeh, the deputy foreign minister of Iran, those are mines.
It does look like we learned this week that the strait had been mined. And the areas of safe passage are known by Iran, being controlled by Iran. And so even though there is this uneasy ceasefire, at least on the US's part, that ship traffic is far from normal. We're seeing reports of a handful of ships traversing the Strait of Hormuz on the daily, not the 150 that we saw pre-war. And no one knows, frankly, how long it will take to unravel those technical limitations.
I mean, the technical limitations notwithstanding, just unsticking the strait and getting the ships out is a weeks to months proposition.
And this is one of the things that we've been saying here on Energy Shots. Energy analysts around the world have been trying to convey to political leadership that the scale of this disruption is so large. The system, the energy parts of the system that have been disrupted, even if the war can come to a quick end, there's going to be shocks that, like, we are in a shock, and there are going to be a lot of aftershocks. It's not that you can relieve the risks of Strait of Hormuz passage and suddenly markets are going to return to normal. We titled our episode today Shocks and Aftershocks, particularly because the latency in the energy system is still expressing itself.
Very much so.
We've been in the war for now about 6 weeks, I think, and we're still seeing the effects on energy markets and government policy around the world. Let's start here. This is showing us a map conveying where the IEA, the International Energy Agency, is tracking government response to energy shortages. Here's the big picture, Kevin. In the Asia Pacific region, large focus on conservation measures. Countries in blue are showing us places where there have been critical fuel shortages, where the government has intervened, such as in the Philippines, to say, hey, we can't consume 3 days a week, or most people cannot consume 3 days a week because the fear of shortage is so real.
So we're not just talking about $200 a barrel, we're talking about 0 barrels.
We're talking about 0 barrels on some days. We're talking in India of closed fertilizer plants, right? How this is expressing itself in different countries depends a lot on their energy system and their prior planning. But these are places where there have been critical shortages. Even in northern Italy, there's been a jet fuel shortage, which resulted in flights being rationed, at least briefly, as markets had to rearrange.
The Civil Airports Authority in Europe says they're only 3 weeks away from an outright shortage of jet fuel.
And we're seeing similar things around the rest of the world. Now, in orange, we see more moderate interventions. This is places where prices are increasing, conservation measures are being used, excise taxes may be being released in some cases to soften the blow on consumers. That, of course, as you know, compounds risk. If you subsidize an activity, you probably get more of it. And for a world that is still going to be dealing with the aftershocks of this for some time, the wisdom of that is, of course, in question.
So driving with the brakes and the accelerator at the same time?
Yeah, that's right. Now, Kevin, one of the things that you and I have been puzzling about is, the world is in this incredible energy shock, largest in history, and yet things kind of going along. We haven't yet seen a huge macroeconomic effect, even though countries around the world are intervening to protect their population, to conserve fuel supplies. Some of that might be time. Some of it might be the changing nature of the economy. How are you thinking about that?
Well, I think we should ask this question. what will the importing economies do? And I think the answer to that question is they're going to ask, what can we do to make sure this never happens again? And for that, they have essentially four options. One is to diversify sources and routes. Another is to use domestic resources, including electrification. A third is to look at insurance, petroleum insurance in the form of strategic reserves or commercial stockpiles they could build. And a fourth is to increase efficiency. And when we ask, where do those options come from? Well, it turns out that history has a way of rhyming. If we look back 50 years ago at the oil shocks of the 70s, we can see some changes in petroleum consumption, petroleum intensity of GDP. And that's exactly where this chart starts. So we're looking at oil intensity of GDP for essentially the US. And we're looking against the backdrop of oil prices. These are real Brent prices in the blue bars. So you can see that real oil prices quadrupled, right, between the beginning of the 70s and the end of the 70s, which is an extraordinary change. They quadrupled here, and then they octupled, if you look from the beginning to the end. And so when you look at what happens in the world, world energy intensity of GDP is falling. But look at the swift decline on the green line. And the swift decline also in the EU, the gray line, and the orange line, the US. And that mechanism is a response, not to being bitten once, but twice. Maybe that takes us to the next chart. When we ask the question, what about the oil share of energy consumption on a primary energy basis? Again, the gray is the EU, the green is the world, and the orange is the US, against the same backdrop of the Brent price, the real Brent price, real world price. And you can see, again, that swift decline. Here we are, falling off the cliff in a very big way. And it's not a coincidence that it happens after that enormous second bite.
So this is the last time we had a major interruption in the Strait of Hormuz in the 1970s with the oil and Arab embargo, right?
Oh, in the region, yes.
In the region, politically motivated as opposed to the result of a war. But you had a structural shift of the use of petroleum in various parts of the economy. And then the question now is, can countries repeat that?
Well, it was a double tap. It wasn't just the initial shock from the Arab oil embargo, but then the Iranian Revolution produced a second shock, which takes us up into the second register here.
Yes.
But let's look a little more closely at the US, where we saw so many policy interventions and so many responses. And one of the things that you can see here, if you look at the non-transportation share of petroleum, that is really where you get this deep dive. And I want to dig into that a little bit, but first I want to look, this is looking at a percentage share of petroleum consumption in the US. That's what this is, a percentage. But I actually want to dig deeper and look at the absolute number, which is on the next slide, because I think it really brings home what's happening here. Now, when you look at the non-transportation share of petroleum, it goes down and comes back up. That rebound, we've still got this kit in place. We've got to make it work somehow. That's because of the inelasticity of demand. Keeps you locked into petroleum. But then if you look at how it dives down, it stays down, and then look, it dives again when we have a second spike as this is a demand-driven shock, right? In the early 2000s, as China's demand rises and the petroleum price globally rises, you get this second change.
So this is showing us these two lines are not percentages, right? These are BTUs.
These are trillions of BTUs of primary energy consumption.
And this is the absolute amount of petroleum being used in non-transportation and in transportation.
And what do you see about transportation?
Well, transportation continued to grow up until 2007, 2008, and then plateaus.
Right. And so we do see the effects of transportation efficiency setting in, and then of course COVID. But once again, you have a demand side shock, a short shock, and a rebound. But we are at a level where absolutely relative to the 70s, despite much more efficiency, larger population means that you still have more energy use from petroleum.
And we're going to talk a little bit at the end of the episode about the role of electrification in transportation, because that seems to be a big theme in the coverage of this issue. But let's talk a little bit more about the U.S. and non-transportation uses.
So this is where most of the squeeze comes in. If you look at the gray, this is power generation. And the power generation share, again, we don't really see the changeover until that second bite comes, and then a very significant drop. What we're looking at ultimately in that non-transportation use works out to the equivalent of about 3 million barrels per day of demand destruction. 3 million barrels per day of consumption, 2/3 of which in the residential, commercial, and power generation sectors. If you were growing up, as I did, in the 1970s, and you had an oil tank fueling your house, chances are that house moved to something else. We'll talk about that in a moment. And that happened in a lot of places, pretty much except for in New England and a few other parts of the mid-Atlantic. In power generation, there's just a tiny little bit of petroleum power generation, Hawaii, New England.
Alaska
left and right.
probably as well.
Yeah.
Like
So
small
big changes
villages.
in response to the fundamentals of a short market.
Right.
So let's dig just a tiny bit deeper. One of the big changes is that if you look at the change in electrification as a share of residential energy consumption, now we're looking at total energy consumption by sector, and the green line is the electricity share of that consumption. And you can see petroleum falling off. You can also see natural gas falling off in the residential sector.
Right.
So it's important to note the effect, the long-term effect of electrification as a trend, as a secular trend, really, also as a policy change. Electrification with industrialization is just part of the history of the United States, but it also represents a diversification policy option. Moving to commercial, you see a similar sort of story. Again, the impact in this case, for whatever reason, electricity is red in this chart, but you can see the same relationship. Now you see petroleum and natural gas falling off, although natural gas rising a little bit more in the commercial sector with more uptake. And then if we go to the power generation itself, what we get is a story where I think the first recourse after the 70s from moving out of petroleum in this blue line is to ramp up coal-fired generation.
Right.
And we see that going on and continuing, ramping down a little bit as a share of total energy. But what comes in is you start to see this rise. First, there's an initial wave of combined cycle gas turbines, highly efficient gas plants, driving consumption in the power sector. And then, of course, what we see is the massive transition after the shale gale blows in and takes all this new power generation out of coal, and coal plummets. But of course, that's against the backdrop of both nuclear, which really steps into the scene early, and then also the contribution of renewable generation coming into the mix. So where are we in the United States? What we see is a diversification, first of all, to domestic production. A lot of that domestic energy production is a massive part of this story. But we also see this huge shift out of petroleum in the industrial mix, in the stationary sectors, even more so residential, commercial, and power generation.
And that feeds into the broader story, which we saw at the very beginning of the slide deck, which was that the global economy is now much less reliant on petroleum as a source of primary energy in non-transportation sectors.
And on an absolute percentage basis.
In terms of GDP.
May I make an observation about your map?
Please.
I think I noticed that the map did not include export bans.
Now, it didn't include export bans, and it also did not include strategic petroleum releases.
But we do know that export bans and even limitations on strategic barrels are happening.
Yeah, and in some cases, the export bans are part of what's causing critical shortages. Take, for example, Australia has no domestic refinery capacity, buys all of its gasoline, diesel, and other refined products off international markets. When your two key sources for that are the Middle East and China, the Middle East is closed for business and China has an export ban, you'll end up with a fuel shortage.
So when disruption hits, deglobalization is bad news.
Yeah, it is.
And this is not the way the IEA conceived of this system. When we go back to the reaction to those shocks in the 70s, their response was, well, let's create a sort of a lattice work of interoperable strategic reserves so the countries could come to the collective rescue of the global developed economies.
Right. Now, some of this might be, if this crisis continues, if the strait doesn't reopen or is a trickle instead of a flood, I do think those international mechanisms can help resolve some of these critical shortages, right? These are at the moment are episodic. They're not long lasting. But amongst the options are a return to securitization. Will we see refineries be again distributed in countries that had said we probably don't need those anymore?
So when you say a trickle versus a flood, I know two recent posts from President Trump on Truth Social, one of which says that Iran is doing, quote, a very poor job, dishonorable, some would say, at resuming flows through the strait. And the second says they better not be charging fees, and if they are, they better stop now. So it doesn't sound like whatever comes next, I think a lot of these countries, these importing economies, are going to be asking questions about the long term. And it may be that there's a very salutary scenario tomorrow in Islamabad, a clean workout that brings us back to something like normal over a period of months, maybe even months to years. Right. But in the meantime, there are a lot of economies that are going to be asking questions. One of those questions, is it just going to be about the non-transportation sector?
Right.
And in the case of efficiency, a lot of those economies that we're talking about, the Asian economies, don't have the same lossy buildings that we had, the lossy industrial sectors that we had. They've got new stuff, new, tight, efficient buildings. So they're going to be looking at other forms of diversification in response, which I think you have thought about.
Well, yes, in particular, there's a question of how much does this shock accelerate or otherwise incentivize the shift toward electrification in transportation, right? If you have electric vehicles have gotten inexpensive, they're efficient, a lot of consumers prefer them. You're reading anecdotes over the last few weeks of BYD dealerships in the Philippines and Australia with lines out the door. The question is, of course, how do you turn anecdote into analysis? And I think one of the questions that I've gotten from folks here in Washington, our politicians are talking about, freedom barrels.
We forgot completely about the freedom barrels. Right, two quick observations before we jump into that. This is what happens when we do this on the fly. We say it's live. It's live.
Yep.
So the big note that we sort of heard about a lot was that U.S. petroleum exports are up.
Right.
Well, U.S. petroleum exports have the virtue of not being constrained by choke points. And the question we'll be wondering about the data, not just for the refined products barrels, but also for the crude oil barrels, is if they're up because of this crisis, if we can attribute it, and I mean, because after all, they've been rising. The last year, they were pretty high, but week on week, looking at EIA data. But on a net export basis, we've been absolutely shipping out a lot of refined petroleum, a lot of crude oil. And that means that one of those diversification options may be to look more at the United States. And then the second thing, sort of in relation to markers of scarcity and questions about what these importing economies are going to think, is that something very unusual happened this month when Saudi Arabia put out their official selling prices for Arab Light to different destination markets. These prices are expressed as deltas to underlying benchmark barrels. So these are not absolute oil prices, but the relative surcharge applied to those prices, sometimes negative relative to the benchmark, other times positive. We're looking at $20 plus positive to several different markets.
You're talking about something that is hovers around zero, might be $5 or $6, is now $25.
$25 for delivery in May, right? So this is at the beginning of April, fixing the price for the deliveries in May. And this is a marker of what those constrained barrels look like in terms of a physical scarcity. Last time we did an episode, we looked at spot prices in the Persian Gulf. Now we're looking at this very specific official selling price relative to.
So this is
what people actually have to pay.
This is important because of this surcharge, if you want to call it that. $20, $30, depending on the region it's going to. So Asia, you have a $28 premium. Oh, I'm sorry. Asia has a $20 premium. Europe has a $28 premium, and US has a $15 premium. Now, this is based on Brent. Now, so if Brent crude is trading at 100, then it's getting shipped to Europe, it's going to be at $128. All right. So when we look at Brent and what's happening here for the future price, it actually is not really capturing this scarcity premium. So this is the Saudi official selling price of Arab Light versus the actual future price. So the question is how long will this scarcity premium last? Because if it lasts, then it will eventually trickle into other markets and there's going to be inflation. So if this is elevated for a long time, months or a year, then it's definitely going to be an inflationary problem worldwide, including the United States. If this drastically comes down within a few weeks, then there's not going to be much of a change in the world economy. There's going to be an effect, but it's going to be somewhat muted and quote transitory. All right, but this is a big issue here. How long does this scarcity premium last?
When we talk about the difference between financial markets or paper markets and physical markets, this is one of the key ways of tracking that difference.
And so this is why some of those importing economies are going to be thinking about
Electric vehicles.
discussing if only there were a slide about electric vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, here's the big question. We all know EVs are entering the market. They're changing market dynamics. What we're showing here is the IEA's estimate of how much oil consumption has been displaced by new EVs joining the transportation fleet. Now that is not destroyed, it's displaced. It's a counterfactual evaluation. What if that hadn't been an EV, if those transportation services were provided by ICE vehicles, cars, vans, buses, motorcycles, and scooters? Their estimate over the past is that this is showing you each data point is a year starting in 2010 up to 2024. And this is showing us the sort of steady march and acceleration in between the years of global EV deployment to now about 60 million EVs around the world, much of that in China. And this is showing us the extent of displacement of oil consumption that otherwise would have taken place is now about 1 million barrels a day.
But there's some cyclicality to this in terms of it takes a while before displacement could become destruction because vehicles leave their primary markets, ICE EVs, often go to secondary markets at lower fixed costs that can justify perhaps higher variable costs for petroleum even at times like these.
Yes, and so one of the things that's very interesting to think about, and as journalists and others are pondering this question, is how would a country that wants to adopt this momentum, maybe it's consumers that do it as well, that, what kind of EV sales, what kind of growth is necessary to really destroy demand up to 3, 5, or even the 10 million barrels a day of supply disruption that we've seen. And there you have to be very careful with your math, because whether you have a cash for clunkers type program, right, you're actually retiring things from the fleet, or if you just have consumers choosing a less volatile transportation service in electrification, but then selling their ICE vehicle back into secondary markets is going to be one of the biggest, I think, determiners of how much EVs truly protect global economy from future volatility.
So you can take this number and basically discount it because of the secondary market of a particular fossil fuel powertrain. So instead of saying 1 million barrels that are displaced, it's probably only 500,000. So if it's only 500,000 barrels displaced, truly displaced, then even if it's 1 million barrels displaced, it's not really that big of a deal. Because think about, just in the Strait, there were 14 million barrels going through the Strait a day, right? And this is 1 million barrels. So, 500,000 barrels a day that are displaced. Is it per day? Per day, yeah. 1 million barrels per day. All right, so they're saying without having a discount of the secondary market with these vehicles, it's approximately 1 million barrels per day that's displaced. So it's approximately 1/14 of what is going through the Strait. What goes through the Strait is approximately 20% of the actual flow of the world of oil per day. So if it's really only half of that because of secondary market, you only have 500,000 barrels that are being displaced per day. So it's not that much. And even if they are 100% right on this and there's no secondary market, which that's not the case, then it's still not that much. Because think about it, it's literally only one, let's say, 1/14. It's 7% of the daily flow of the Strait. And that daily flow through the Strait is 20% of the flow in the world. So it's not that much of a displacement. So EVs, even though there's been many societies and many areas of the country that have adoption of this, it's not displacing that much. But not just that. This is oil. They're talking about oil. All right? But for your EV in the United States, most of the electrification to charge it is coming from coal or natural gas burning. So you still have natural gas or coal usage. So your EV technically is still burning fossil fuel indirectly because that's where it's getting its energy. Now, some places may get their energy through nuclear. Some places may get it through hydroelectric. Some places may even get it through solar, either distributed or decentralized solar. Because some people have solar panels on their home and they charge their vehicle at home, but not many people do that. So the average person in the United States most likely is charging their EV through natural gas or fossil fuel plants.
In the 70s, the sectors that had the ability to move did move.
Yeah.
They moved once the price became intolerable a second time.
Right.
Now, you might argue that this is the second bite in the 2020s. Right? And the first came in the Ukraine war.
And in the 70s and 80s, right?
Another thing that's interesting here is that if EV is adopted more widespread in U.S. society, most likely natural gas will go up, the futures, because the natural gas plants are providing the electricity. Well, so if demand for oil starts to go down, it's very possible that the demand for natural gas will go up. And this may be part of the reason why in the futures market, we're starting to see in many days, not every day, but many days, it's inversely related. As oil goes up, natural gas goes down. As oil goes down, natural gas goes up. Now, this crisis, natural gas also had a positive correlation to oil, but on more than half of the trading days out there, it does seem as though I should do a slide on this and explain it and go into more detail. But my anecdotal observation, it seems as though half of the trading days, natural gas could go up and oil could go down. They're negatively correlated, and that may be the reason why what I'm seeing anecdotally here. But I should dive into the data and take a look at it a little bit more. Oh, come on. Oh, why is it dying there? Oh, there we go.
Of the small, efficient Japanese car. And there was an efficiency gain that we saw in U.S. transportation. You saw price-sensitive consumers choosing those vehicles that threaten and put the American auto industry into crisis. But as markets kind of settled out, engines got more efficient. People moved back to large cars, SUVs, and now we've got the fleet we are today. And we've got a higher level of consumption of petroleum than we ever had before in transportation services.
Well, the EPA's annual vehicle report shows, among other things, some of those efficiency gains have translated into making vehicles faster. Bigger vehicles become faster with more horsepower. So we are consuming some of that efficiency. The reality, politically speaking, is that it's hard for American politicians to get reelected putting large people into small cars. And 15 years of small cars on American roads were not that popular. My first car was a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
I drive an SUV now, and I like it much better.
Cool. And I do think, and on this question of our country's now going to favor EVs, our consumers going to favor EVs, the markets to watch are where you're adding vehicles, not necessarily where in a country like the US where transportation services are widely available. The developing economies in Asia, Southeast Asia, whether they choose electrification, never really adopt ICE vehicles to the extent that we have, probably a stronger determinant of how much EVs displace oil demand in the near term than what American consumers do.
So before I get to what we're looking at next, I'm going to dare to make a prediction in summation.
I want to hear
It
it.
sounds like what you're saying is that because there has been a second bite, and because these importing economies are asking, what can we do to make sure this never happens again? We are likely to see those diversification responses, those policy responses are probably coming if this ends tomorrow.
Yeah.
But my question is, what are you watching starting with tomorrow?
Starting with tomorrow, I'm watching whether or not the ceasefire is real. Whether or not the alignment of incentives for Iran, the United States, Israel, players in the Gulf, will bring us toward a settlement where you can resume something that looks like normal commerce. Very far from that today, I suspect. And you're already hearing profound disagreements over what are the terms of negotiation as it relates to the opening of the strait, the highly enriched uranium and its status in Iran or outside Iran. And so I'm watching this weekend whether or not some of that is resolved. I don't know what Iranian leadership is thinking. I don't even necessarily know who Iranian leadership is. and whether or not we can see a true movement toward an end of the conflict, or if we sort of enter a phase which is sort of more low level, involves fewer and more episodic attacks on either side, but will continue to be a strain on global markets.
Well, so from my perspective, I think what we recognize is that ceasefires are tricky. Fundamentals are sticky. And so there isn't immediate price relief coming. And there's a long workout potentially ahead of us. And with that long workout, it's worth remembering that Russia General License 134, which allowed sanctions-free purchases for previously loaded Russian barrels starting on March 12th, expires tomorrow as well. And an open question has been, will that sanctions relief continue? Now,
let me give you my take on this. So right now, oil is trading at around $96 a barrel. All right? If we have positive news coming out, there's going to be the short-term effect and the long-term effect. Like every great economist, they have, just long-term effects and short-term effects. So if there is positive news coming out of the ceasefire, which I doubt, oil will go down and test the 90 handle, test the 90s support level, may break it and go into the 80, high 80 range. If the news is bad, which I suspect, then we're going to be above $100 a barrel. All right, so you're talking about maybe a $6, $7 move. Now, the question is, will Trump continue on negotiating for the full 2 weeks before hitting again or not? If it doesn't seem like there's going to be some sort of resolution, it's going to stay elevated. If they're seeing, and I suspect that the administration is going to jawbone the news, this price in the short run is going to fluctuate from $102 down to $98 or $97 and then come back up over these negotiation days. But if we end up having to hit them again, then we're talking about elevated oil. Now, let's take the other side of it, where there is ceasefire that leads to leaving the region, and there's no further conflict, which is small probability, but it's possible. Then we're going to have this move down to around 80, I would say about $88 a barrel. And then there's going to be traders that are going to maybe try to push it down to 85. And then what's going to happen is it's going to fluctuate, and there's going to be a trading range between 85 to 90. And then that will last for a couple weeks, and then a few weeks after, then the trading range is going to be around 80 to 85. And that's going to last for a few weeks. And then the trading range is going to be at around 75 to 80. I think it's going to stabilize in the 70 handle. But it's going to, like staircase, it's going to fluctuate and then staircase, fluctuate and staircase, fluctuate, staircase. All right. And so this is going to continue on through the remainder of the year. So are we going to be at $65 a barrel by year end? Maybe, but at the very tail end of the year. So most likely not. All right. And so we're not going to get to the $50 range. We're not going to be at a $58 to $62 range for trading oil this year. I'd be surprised at that. It's going to staircase and slowly move downward. All right, so we're going to see relative to before the war, elevated oil futures. Now, what will be interesting is how natural gas responds.
So I don't know if it's been extended already, but I think a reasonable presumption is that it might be. And then we start to get questions. The other thing I think, as we look at the long term, we should remember that wars have a tendency to accelerate trends, right? In exigent circumstances, governments consolidate power, they bring together academia and industry, and they enable, by sort of surpassing regulatory and budget barriers, a way to get through to commercialization of technologies that wouldn't have happened in ordinary marketplace conditions. You have the Civil War bringing rail, we have World War I, propagating petroleum fuels and mass production. World War II, we have nuclear power coming out of that, also aviation. The Vietnam War, communications and media technology. I would argue that even the war on terror, Iraq and Afghanistan, brings drones into the fore. And I suspect right now in Ukraine and Iran, we're going to see the further pressure into the public sector, the commercial sector for AI. So this acceleration is happening, and we should not ignore it in an energy context.
I think that's absolutely correct. Thankfully, we'll be here in 2 weeks' time to keep plugging away on these issues, telling the stories of the energy world through data. Kevin, I look forward to seeing you then.
Likewise.
Colleagues who joined us worldwide, thank you so much. We hope you have an energetic day, and we'll see you next time on Energy Shots.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the ashwagandha root. This will help to control your cortisol levels and help you to control your blood glucose levels. This will help with cardiovascular health. Super important also for your immune system. Digestive enzyme complex helps to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids and reduce the load on your pancreas. Super important, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. Lignans brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals, helps the immune system and the endocrine system, but it also helps with brain function and cardiovascular health. Vitamin B complex, if you're 40 years of age or older, your metabolism isn't working as well, and you have lower concentrations of ATP. Vitamin B complex will increase your concentrations of ATP because it improves the health of the mitochondria. It also improves your cellular metabolism. That way, your tissues will perform better, and guess what? You won't be as fat. And vitamin B complex will help to protect your neurons. Take it every day. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps to get rid of senescent cells, helps to soak up free radicals, and helps the health of your mitochondria so you have more energy. It also helps the basal layer of your skin, so your skin health is improved. This stacks really well with C60 and Boomer Boost. Let's talk about Boomer Boost for a second here. 68 nutrients. It has a very comprehensive compound profile shown here. This will help to slow down the aging process and target multiple systems: brain function, cardiovascular health, musculature, energy levels, rev up your metabolism, boost up your immune system, help with your endocrine system. So please go to my store, get the Boomer Boost. This is super important to take every day to help to slow down the aging process. And you can stack this with many of the supplements, like the resveratrol, the C60, the Max 35, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, the probiotics, the multivitamin. By doing that every day, you're slowing down the aging process. And you're targeting those points that are aging you. You're bringing down the inflammation. You're revving up your metabolism. You're improving your energy levels with ATP. You're helping your cardiovascular health. You're helping your immune system. You're helping your brain function. These are all super important. You're helping with gut health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Boomer Boost, and stack them with the other supplements. All right. Heirloom barley can also be stacked with the Boomer Boost to help also to control the A1C levels, but you can take it separately. It's up to you. Now, heirloom barley, this is going to detoxify your body daily, soak up the free radicals, and bring down inflammation. And like I said, by bringing down inflammation, soaking up free radicals, you're helping all these different organ systems, including your brain, your cardiovascular, your immune system, your endocrine system. Super important, even your joint health. You'll recover quicker after a workout by taking this. And you're detoxifying your body. And guess what? If you have a lot of toxins in your body because of the environment or because you're eating foods that are overprocessed, your body will age faster. This will help to detoxify your body. So drink filtered water, stay away from processed foods, reduce your sugar intake, apply a holistic approach to your life. Proper diet, proper exercise, proper sleep, mindfulness, learn new things. These are all synergistic with the supplements to slow down the aging process. So please go to my store and get the heirloom barley. Okay, now let's listen to, I think we should listen to, no, I'm debating. Should we listen to CNN's retired generals? Or should we go to something else? I'm looking to see if there's some breaking news about what's going on in Pakistan. who News Nation, Trump is saying U.S. knows where Iranian mines are in the Strait. Or should we go to Mamdani? Yeah, let's wind this show down with what's going on with Napoleon the Pig, aka Mayor Mamdani from New York City.
New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani suggested his plan of making buses free throughout the city may take a while to implement. In an interview with Politico, the mayor agreed promise of free bus fare, something he will most likely not be able to achieve until next year.
Instead, he's touting a limited fare pilot program that he views as a first step toward eventually making the buses free for everyone. Mamdani stated, quote, I'm absolutely committed to making buses fast and free, and we're encouraged by the conversations we're having with the governor and legislative leaders to take action on that in 2026 as a first step. The idea of free buses was a cornerstone of Mamdani's mayoral campaign, and polls have shown it's something the majority of New Yorkers support. But it would, of course, take a great deal of funding, with estimates that it could cost the city's transportation authority over $600 million per year.
Meanwhile, the mayor also recently released a citywide racial equity plan. I love this. Released from the city's office says the plan will require major city agencies to examine their work through a racial equity lens and identify and eliminate those disparities. It includes agencies focused on issues like housing, infrastructure, community safety.
But the plan notably avoided using the term diversity, equity, and inclusion, which the New York Times reports was done deliberately to avoid scrutiny from Trump officials. The president has, of course, made the elimination of DEI practices a top priority since his return to office, threatening to cut funding from places that use it. The Times writes, quote, officials from the Mamdani administration had expected there might be potential federal blowback to the report. In preparation, they did not restore references to diversity, equity, and inclusion that had been eliminated in the draft that the Mamdani administration had inherited from his predecessor, Eric Adams, according to two people familiar with the draft reports.
Nevertheless, the plan still caught the eye of Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon. She wrote an X, sounds fishy / illegal. Will review. Looking into it. The free buses, I guess.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen yet, Robbie. It's going to get there in the end.
I call me old-fashioned. I think people who use the bus should pay for the bus, and seems fine to me. I don't know why people who don't use the bus should pay for it, which is, I guess, he has.
I think free public transport has all sorts of benefits in getting people around the city. It could stimulate economic growth by making it easier for people to get to work without having to pay the cost. Somebody does have to pay.
Free doesn't mean magically out of thin air. Well, it means you pay more taxes.
It could mean you have to pay more taxes. On the other hand, if it serves to foster greater employment opportunities or require less in the terms of, for example, if it allows someone to go and take care of their aging parent rather than have someone from the city or state to do it, then ultimately it is a net benefit. This is why we disagree, I think, so fundamentally about government investment, is that apart from the fact that I think it can serve a social good, I also think it often serves an economic good as well in being stimulatory or...
But the problem is that the added economic benefit is minuscule relative to the cost that is associated with it. So you have this cost of, let's say, $1 increase through taxation to have a social program. But the economic benefit could be only 25 cents. All right. Why isn't in a perfect world? So taxpayer dollars have to go and pay 75 cents, but you only get a 25-cent return. Well, I find that a problem because you're net in the hole. You're negative. Now, it would be great if you put in, let's say, $1 of tax, and you get in return $1.25, or even $1 into the society, and you break even, or you make 25 cents per dollar put in. Some projects actually make the society more productive. If it's making the society more productive, then you are getting a positive return. But if you are putting in to social programs and you're getting a negative return, you shouldn't have the social programs. It needs to return a positive for the economy. So if he really believes this, then they need to show that every single social program is showing a net to the economy relative to the amount of money that's being put in. All right?
Well, to be in employment.
Well, the reason I don't agree that it's stimulating is that it's just a redistribution, right? Because you do have to still pay for it. So it's either the people using the service are paying for it, or everyone is paying more in taxes to pay for it, and so the stimulating effect of it being free is good, yes, but is then just offset by whatever. I mean, unless you're getting the revenue from, it could be some scheme where if the state is giving them the money for it, and so it's really the taxpayers of the state overall, it might be stimulating for New York City in particular, because now we're getting the people in New York City, they're getting a discount because it's free for them, and the cost of being diffused across the whole state. But I think it's unfair to make people pay for something they're not going to get any benefit out of, benefit of New Yorkers instead.
But then you say not get any benefit out of. I mean, if you were hard line about that view, someone who does not have children doesn't directly get anything out of public education, but they get.
Well, this is a good point. This is a good point. If you don't have children and you're paying taxes for the public schools, by the way, are failing, but your tax-paying dollars go to the public school. The society does benefit because you have an educated society, supposedly, and they'll be employed, supposedly. But what happens when they're not educated and they're not getting employed? Then actually that social program is failing.
Directly out of public education, namely an educated populace who can do jobs and aren't ultimately becoming wards of the state, or who aren't suffering from all of the other things that go from ignorance. Now, I don't think, even though I always enjoy your libertarian views, I don't think you would exempt childless adults from paying taxes to fund schools. Were you on the basis that they don't have children?
I am generally for moving toward people paying for things that they get the benefit of, and not having to pay for things they don't get the benefit of.
Right, but do you not think that
not having a public education program at all is too radical a proposal to have any, and so there's not really any point to proposing it. I certainly would prefer education be administered privately. It still be publicly funded, but administered privately. That's a less radical proposal, but probably the best I can do right now. But no, I think people should. I think government's core function is to provide military, police, and court systems, and the firefighters and those things got to be. Obviously, yes, some public transportation as well has to be handled by the government. Some disease mitigation, there's some not core function of government. The government still does, it's fine, but asking other people to pay for it if they're not going to benefit from it, and in the stimulus effect, this government is always coming up with, like, I remember in Michigan trying to do this, right? Let's have a film industry in Michigan. We want people to make movies. That'll be good for the economy. It would be good for the economy if they make movies in Michigan. You hire actors and directors and electricians and everything. But the way they got them to do that is they created a film incentive, tax incentive program where it was basically just a direct cash payment to films that were going to be made in Michigan, paid for by raising taxes on other business owners, taxi drivers. It's like, well, yes, there's some benefit, but why should you pay for this benefit that kind of everyone gets? You know what I mean? At some point, it's just a transfer. If the market is not supplying it of its own demand, government can come in and weight the scales in some other way that this industry or this sector will benefit, and that will be good for everyone. But by just harming this sector, it's good for the economy if whatever business is being taxed to pay for this is doing better and has more money to spend to grow its own business. That's also good for the economy.
Yeah, I think where we actually disagree in the theory of all of this is that you define someone benefiting from a particular activity in much narrower terms than I do. So I would argue that there are various kinds of activity to which there is a social benefit. High quality of public education being an obvious example. High quality.
But the problem is that you don't have high quality of education that's in the public sector. That's the problem. They keep on asking for money, but yet the outcomes are worse. The kids can't read, write, and do arithmetic, and they want more money. No, they should not get more money. They need to improve their outcomes. This is why people don't want to put their kids in public schools. They want to put them in private schools. Private schools, you'll produce a smarter kid. You put them in a public school, guess what? If you don't live in a really good school district, you're not going to have an educated kid. You're going to have a lower educated kid, unfortunately. So what's happening is that social programs, they may mean well, they may actually be effective at the very beginning, and then all of a sudden there is this erosion of effectiveness. They need more money. It becomes bureaucratic, and then all of a sudden the outcomes are terrible.
System if it were up to me, because I think there are all kinds of corollary benefits to not having people driven into bankruptcy through medical bills and having access to medical care that is fast and efficient.
Well, let's think about this. With medicine, more people there needs to be more research dollars, and there needs to be more money for Medicare and Medicaid and all this stuff. All right? But the reality is, if you want to cut the costs at the societal level of healthcare, patients need to look in the mirror and realize their lifestyle is causing most of the chronic diseases in the United States. You don't need more money to solve it. You need change of behavior. You need change of lifestyle. You need better sources of food. The whole food industry is poisoning you for a buck. But then you have all these problems, and then all of a sudden you have to go to the government and say, we need more money for funding. We need more money for insurance and all this stuff. No, look in the mirror. Most people that have heart disease is because of your own damn fault. Most people that have diabetes because it's your own damn fault. Most people that have chronic illness, in most cases in the United States, it's because of your own damn fault. And then the dollars could be focused on people that actually have problems not based on their lifestyle. Maybe we can actually have money for orphan diseases. Maybe we'll be able to focus on things that we've been not focusing on in terms of research. Maybe. And I'm willing to bet that if people change their lifestyle, that you would save hundreds of billions of dollars in healthcare costs. Hundreds of billions.
And it is, I don't think, true to say that the only person who benefits if there were a good single-payer healthcare system is the person who is ill on that particular day.
There is a benefit. It's not that there's no benefit. There's certainly a benefit, but again, because everything costs money, so there also would have been a benefit to whatever else the money would have been spent on. Right?
There's a benefit to the society.
Maybe
there's a benefit to society for people to take ownership of their own health. They'll be more productive. They'll live longer. They will be able to be a productive citizen. They'll be more energetic. The society will be more prosperous. Instead of, well, we need more funding from the government. And it's just a slow decline of health in the United States. Just keep on declining. This is the mentality of a liberal. To solve problems, the government has to come in and tax you. To solve problems, the government has to create more bureaucracy. To solve problems, the government needs to create more agencies. No. The data shows that it's not helping. Because we're not getting to the root cause. What is being sold to you is bad for you. And how you conduct your life is hurting you. It's that simple. Take ownership and move forward. But what Americans are doing is they don't want to take ownership of their own health. And they want the government to solve the problem. And Big Pharma loves that because Big Pharma needs unhealthy people so they can sell medication. So Wall Street is happy and increases projected stock prices. And puts a buy order on their stock, increases their multiple of earnings per share. Instead of trading 12 times earnings, maybe you should be trading 30 times earnings. All because of a large population not willing to look in the mirror and take charge of their own health. Hundreds of billions of dollars in healthcare costs could be truncated. And we can focus on other things. We can focus on other diseases that are genetic, that are congenital, not because of lifestyle. No, we have look at all the research that's going into people that are overweight. Wait a minute. Yes, there are people that are obese because of a genetic issue. But most people that are overweight is because they couldn't stop eating. Most people that are overweight is because of poor lifestyle choices and sat on the couch and ate potato chips. Most people that are overweight are because they have a bad gut biome. Big Pharma loves that. The GLP-1 drugs that are being sold, it's a bonanza now because everyone's a fat ass in America. Stupid. And the liberals are saying, we need to spend more money. We need to spend more money because we got a lot of fat asses in America. Stupid.
For example, is like sports stadiums, right? They're always trying to, tax the people more, build the sports, and then they talk about the multiplier effect. We spend X amount of dollars, that will create 3 times as much economic value for the area because of tourism and because of whatever. It's like, okay, but you tax everyone to do that. Well, if the taxpayer had $800 more in their pocket, the average taxpayer, they would have used that to invest in their own business or go create economic opportunity. Right. So on some level, it's taking a bucket of scooping a bucket of water out of the
Its
pool.
bottom line is
and
this,
throwing it in.
Robbie. It's as simple as this. You don't have to. You're going too deep with it. It's very simple. All right. The invisible hand versus top-down government. Socialists want top-down government. Socialists want to tell you how society should be spending their money. People that are libertarian, people that are about a free market, it's you decide. Now, this goes back to the Enlightenment. We're going back to the beginning of the show. The cornerstone, the foundation of our constitutional republic is the Enlightenment. Life, liberty, and property rights. We make the decision as an individual, not the government. And this is why socialism is antithetical to the Enlightenment.
To the pool and saying, I'm making the pool bigger. Like, it's all from the same pool of money. It's you have to pretend that the government directing it is somehow having some almost magic multiplier effect on how much economic activity it's generating, that the market itself, which coordinates people's interests much more effectively than any central authority would on its own.
But I mean, I guess I do take that point, but I also think that it kind of glosses over the fact that if you are, as a politician or another official in charge of public funds, there are judicious and unjudicious ways you can use those public funds, right? You can put them into all sorts of scams or schemes or whatever that go nowhere, or you can utilize them to fund services that are beneficial to people. In Mamdani's case, for example, one of his things is to have free, I know you don't like the word free, but free at the point of use childcare for, I think it's now going to be 2-year-olds and upwards. Now, you do that, if you do it effectively, then that frees the parent or guardian of that 2-year-old to work in a way that they couldn't otherwise do. That generates tax revenue, that generates all other kinds of economic activity, and it at least has the potential to serve a social good while doing it.
Right. But
what about going back to the olden days where the grandmother took care of the kid? Because they're already retired. Oh, we have a mobile society now where, there's no family creation. This is the reason. This is, think about it. Even if you have a family, but you've moved away from your parents, all right? Typically, in a society, you have the parents going to work or staying home and taking care of the kid. If they go to work, the grandparents were raising the child. But if you live across the country and the grandparents are on the West Coast and you're living in the East Coast or vice versa or north or south, it doesn't matter. But because of this, have to move away from your family, you don't have that nucleus, family nucleus anymore. Here's another example of ultra-liberals eroding God, country, and family, the family component. It's not just having kids, but it's also being closer to your relatives, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, because there's a larger family unit. But no, society wants you could be mobile. You could be a single mother. You don't need anything. Government's here to take care of you. Socialists are bullshit.
For that, who's not getting that benefit, has to foreclose whatever. Maybe they were going to open another location in their business, or maybe they were just going to take their family to Disney World for the weekend or whatever, for a vacation. Maybe you pull back because you had to spend a little bit more. So what I'm saying is these are all trade-offs. These are because we're not conjuring money out of thin air. So we're always, the money's going to come from someone. And, maybe New York City's full of left-leaning liberal people, so maybe they want the wealthiest in their society are going to pay a little bit more, so there can be free bus fare, and they're okay with that up until a point, they think. And that before they say, you know what, Florida sounds nice. And Disney World, not just this weekend, but the whole year round.
This idea, this is actually one of the, we were talking about AI yesterday. This is one of the few things I actually consulted AI on, which is what the evidence is of that thing, that people move away. It's very mixed evidence.
You think so?
Well, that's what Claude
That's
says.
what Claude says?
So, you know, it must be true with that basis.
Leave it there. We got more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.
All righty.
Rare earth elements.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. This will help to remodel your joints, help to rebuild that cartilage, help to cushion the joint, also reduce pain, reduce inflammation, and reduce the erosion of the joint. Take this every day if you have arthritis or a sports injury. Probiotics. You can get it in the veggie cap version or the powdered version that I have on my store. A good gut biome will improve your skin. It will improve your brain function. It will improve your immune system, your metabolism, reduce the chances of getting allergies. Also, you'll be able to absorb your nutrients better. You'll sleep better. Please go to my store and get the probiotics, either the veggie cap version or the powdered version. C60, very powerful anti-aging, antioxidant. It's 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Now, why is it 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C? The molecule C60, 60 carbons, they can absorb multiple free radicals and recharge because of the way the electron transport, the electron cloud around the molecule is. Okay, so by soaking up free radicals, it's improving the electron transport chain within your mitochondria, so you're producing more ATP. Because when you have high stress and a lot of oxidants that are taking place in the cell, it causes damage to your mitochondria. You want to stop that because that's how you age. Aging is rusting. And through that rusting effect, that's oxidants building up, free radicals building up. This is going to soak up the free radicals. It's going to stop the rusting of age. All right? So you can get it in an MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. Take a teaspoon a day every day. And when you do that, you are going to slow down the aging process and improve your skin. It's improving the basal layer. It's also improving your cardiovascular health. It's helping your brain function. It's boosting up your immune system, your endocrine system. Why? Because you're bringing down the free radicals. You're bringing down stress in your organ systems. You're bringing down that inflammation. So please go to my store, get the C60. You'll feel the effects of this within 2 months if you're taking it every day. And what you're going to do is you're going to notice that you have more energy, and then your systems and your endocrine system, they're all are going to get into homeostasis. You're going to start feeling better. You're going to have more vitality. And over a year period, you will look younger. I've been taking this, a teaspoon a day, every day, since 2016. All right? It works, and it stacks really well with a lot of the supplements that I have. So please go to my store, get the C60, stack it with the Boomer Boost and the Resveratrol, the probiotics, the multivitamin that I have, the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. These are all very powerful ways to slow down the aging process. And lastly, structural nanosilver drops and lozenges. This is very important to take during the allergy season and the cold season. Stock up. You never know when you need them. It will help to neutralize and create a barrier to protect your oral pharynx. Super important. You can get it in cherry flavor, blueberry, honey and lemon, orange splash, and manuka honey. Get a few bags for your household. You never know when you need them. Have some at work, have some at home. But the moment you have that throat irritation, take them right away. If you're cleaning in the house, take them after you clean to make sure that you're created the secretions and the barrier to prevent any infection. All right? Super important. Very high quality. They're made from structural nanosilver and they'll help to neutralize. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's the end of my broadcast. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, get $5 off any order. Share the links, ask your social media to follow me. Please help me grow these channels. I have lots of channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Follow me on all of them, and ask your social media to follow me. Help grow the channel. It's really important that I get to explain on how to improve your health. All right? Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.